Today looking at 37, and I will encourage you, don't look at the little margins up here to tell you what it is. This one says, blessings to the righteous. Well, that's somebody else's conclusion. If you're going to be an evidentiary Christian, you see what the text says. Also, be careful using this stuff on the middle and at the bottom, because some of that will sway you away from what the evidence on the page is telling you. And so be very careful with that, because you'll start drawing conclusions based on somebody else's conclusions. And you don't know how they came to that conclusion. But the idea is still sound. You're following somebody else's path, and you want to look at your own path. There seems to be this fear that if we're not all on the same page theologically, we'll wander off into the desert, just little groups here and there. But I'm thinking that it's the theologians that have got us sitting with a different church on every corner. People that are evidentiary Christians will see the same thing on the page, just like detectives looking at one crime scene without touching it, just going over the grid. And you have to debate, and you have to push your argument. If you think the shoe print belongs to the victim, or if you think the shoe print belongs to the perpetrator, or if you think the shoe print belongs to a passerby, you have to make an argument for that as opposed to just accepting it. So what we have is, please look at the inside. I like to go with the first few sentences of the Psalm, because the Psalms do that. It usually begins with what he's going to be talking about. In this one, it's fret not thyself because of evildoers. Great, you're telling me now what we're going to be talking about. For they will soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good, so you might dwell in the land. I love this next part. He says, delight yourselves in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your ways to the Lord, and he will bring it to pass, and bring forth thy righteousness to the light, and the judgment as the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently. So you can see that as delight in the Lord, commit in the Lord, rest in the Lord. So he's giving an idea of how these are the components of not worrying. These are the components of not getting all built up into a lather about something. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil, for evildoers will be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. Even Jesus was referenced this, where he said the meek shall inherit the earth. He goes to go over this. Even in 11 he says, but the meek shall inherit the earth. Jesus talked about this. And shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. See, peace is important. And meek live at peace. Live at peace with their neighbors, live at peace with themselves. The wicked plot against the just and gnash at him with his teeth. But the Lord laughs at him, for he sees that his day is coming. Remember when in Psalms 2 where it says the Lord laughs. Here the Lord's laughing because he knows that this evil man's evil day is coming. Their sword shall end up in their own heart, and their bow shall be broken. A little with a righteous man is better than riches with the wicked. The arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the day of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. Very strong words of encouragement, not to get wrapped up in the situations of this life, not to get wrapped up in all the politics and things, but trusting in the Lord, delighting yourself, committing yourself to him, and he will take care of you. So we have this. The wicked borroweth and payeth not again, but the righteous showeth mercy and giveth. So righteous people are givers. The steps of the good man are ordered by God, and he delights in his ways. But God has established a way for us to walk, and when we choose to walk in that way, it gives him delight. Just like when you're a father, if you see your sons and daughters making strong choices, it's a delightful thing. When you see them making foolish choices, it's a hurtful thing. And I love what he says here in 25, I've been young and now I'm old. So you get the idea that this is one that he wrote much later in life. And I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. That's an interesting one to lie upon, because we haven't seen that the righteous forsaken or begging bread. He is ever merciful and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Depart from evil and do good. The Lord loveth judgment. I'm kind of hitting the tops of these, because they just go into it how it goes again and again of how not to worry, but there are active things you can do instead of passively waiting for God to move, passively waiting for things to come your way. There's an active point to where you can be participating in this. Mark the perfect man and behold the upright, for the end of man is peace. But transgressors shall be destroyed together, the end of the wicked shall be cut off. But the salvation of the righteous of the Lord, he is the strength in time of trouble. All of this is telling us that he has strength for time of trouble. And again, no other God comes to your rescue like Yahweh, like Jesus. The others sit there, whatever's happening to you, well, you just worship them and jump through your hoops, and see if things work out. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe he'll be happy with you, maybe he won't. Most gods and all the other religions are fairly capricious and unknowable. This one is knowable, and he is trustworthy. And the Lord shall help them, deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. If you want to know how he will save you, because you trust in him. It's a choice to trust. We're looking at 23 and 24 in Exodus, and we're seeing some very good things here. I know this is the part of the Bible where people start to bog down. They will roar through the 10 plagues, and then they'll go through the 10 commandments. Then they start slowing down the laws, hear about how you should deal with one another, laws with how masters deal with servants and property rights. It's like all of a sudden we're starting to bog down. But there's some very important things in here that we need to see. That, again, he's setting this up from zero. These people have no economy. They have no structure. Now they have no laws. What do you do? What do you not do? How do you treat one another? How does a man treat a woman? How does a woman treat a man? How do masters treat the servants? And what about people that don't want to be Israelites or be a part of Judaism by not getting circumcised? What about them? What about this? What about that? There's so many questions. He's creating foundational covenant here. And we're going to see in 24 a covenant confirmed. What happens here is God is creating this covenant. It's going to get affirmed, and then from there come all these other laws and things that grow out of that. Just an extrapolation. Okay, here's what it really looks like. Here's how this affects this. Here's how this affects that. But it begins with the establishment of a covenant. And then from that covenant grows the rest of the tree. So he established this with the 10 Commandments and basic laws. Here he's talking about not to bring up false reports. Don't lie. You've got to have truthfulness. You got to have truthfulness in your economy. You've got to have truthfulness in your courts. You have to have truthfulness in your relationships. There's no way to progress. There's no way to grow. There's no way to have a stable economy without truthfulness. Don't follow the multitude, says. Neither shall you countenance a poor man in his cause. So the idea of putting a poor man around, only listening to the rich, not giving the poor a say, not looking out for the poor, ignoring the poor. Many times in these foreign lands, the poor are just ignored. They're just gone. They're dead. They're not even dealt with. Here we're supposed to take care of the poor and the needy, not through socialism, not through just giving them free stuff, unless it's to help them up, but to make them a part of a structured economy. Get them into a household where they can be safe. Get them into a household where they can find purpose. Get them into the household where they can be a part of what's going on and create a life within that household. We are said to be in the household of God. He has he's opened up this household that anybody wants to be in it can come in. But there are requirements. He is God. The laws that we have as Christians are not to get into, but it's because we're in there. We should be so thankful and joyful that we are in his household, that, whatever laws he gives us, whatever structure he has, we're with it. We love him and we want to do what he says. We're not here to just get saved and do what we want. We're here to get saved and in thankfulness and in honor serve him. So we're going through this do not wrestle judgment of thy poor in their cause. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and the righteous slay not. So here they are, many people lying so they can slay, they can take from the innocent. They're not watching out for the poor. Don't oppress the stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing as you were strangers in Egypt. You understand what it's like to be put down and ignored and stepped away because you were strangers in Egypt. He talks about giving them this day off a week. Work for 6 days, take a day off. Up to this point in their life, they probably never had a real day off unless they were tremendously sick or tremendously ill or hurt. And then probably the whip came down. You can't keep up with what you're doing. There's harshness. But here, you're supposed to have the Sabbath. You also have a Sabbath year. The land is supposed to rest. When you get there, don't just raid the land for what you can get out of it. Sow for 6, let it sit for 7. The idea is you do a different part of land every year, so you're always producing something. It's just you have an area that you're producing in for 6 years, you leave it the 7th, you have another one that you're doing, and then you leave it its 7th. So maybe you wait a year. First year do one land, the second year do add another, third year add another. By the time you break your parts into 7 parts, you've always got one land resting while the other 6 are producing. It's just like, what we're doing with Sabbath. I'm resting one day, but the other 6 are producing. So 6 days you'll do the work. On the 7th you shall rest. The same thing is with the land. Laws about appointed feast. He's setting up the feast that shall be kept. That you'll have the unleavened bread that'll be kept. And he's talking about also 3 times a year shall the males appear. So he's going to establish other feasts. These feasts where the men come and stand before God. It's important that the males come. This is not sexism. This is not that God doesn't care. But he set up a structure to where the males are to care for the females and the young and the poor and the oppressed and the elderly. But the men are responsible in the society to put this together. So the men have to appear before God 3 times a year. And anyone who doesn't appear, you're cast out. This is a meeting you don't want to miss. And you shall not offer the blood. He talks about blood sacrifices here. There's a promise of protection. He says, I will send an angel before you. Now, I'm not sure if this angel could be, a supernatural angel that will go before him. And we do see that he's going to send an angel. Usually he has these things called the angels of death, but maybe get the idea later on that there are other angels with other purposes. There's even an angel of deceit, where an angel will go and deceive the nations who don't want to come to God, who have decided they're not going to have anything to do with it. So to stir them up so that God might get glory, he will send this deceptive angel. Now that, again, sounds like something that, ooh, that sounds mean. That's not. Well, God is out to lift up those who love and serve him, and to remove from the earth, and in one time, from all time, he will remove his enemies from him. He loves his enemies through Christ, but one day his enemies that stay enemies will be wiped out by his wrath. And so he has this angel. This angel goes before them, and really, had they followed and trusted this angel, they would have found out the angel will go before you to bring you into this land of the Hittites and the Pizarites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. You won't bow to the gods nor serve them, but you will utterly overthrow them. You'll serve the Lord, and he will bless thy bread and thy water, and I'll make sickness to go from thee. The idea, again, that he was going to take care of them, and he was going to put his fear as the others. And we saw that earlier with Jacob and his boys. When they went through, there was a fear that the God was with them. And there was this fear among the nations around them that they held back. The Moabites, remember with the lion-faced Moabites, were staying away because these people had God on their side. They even they already saw themselves take out the Amalekites. The Amalekites should have been a first fruits. These were some powerful people, powerful enemies that God took care of. So the idea that God would take care of these other groups should have been a foregone conclusion. And so he's going to send out, and he's going to send his fear. He's going to destroy them. He's going to send hornets to drive them out. But he's going to drive them out a little bit at a time, because you're still, relatively speaking, a small people taking over a large amount of land. If he drives them out too quickly, there'll be too many beasts hanging around, and it'll be a big problem. So the idea that he's going to do this in a small way. So taking over the land would be a short thing, a slow thing. I mean, not something that happens overnight. This is why also we see patience. We as Christians have to be patient, that when God's moving, he's moving slowly, but he's moving. And you'll make no covenant with them. And here's where they start to drop the ball. You're going to make no covenant with them. They shall not dwell in your land, but they will make you sin against me. For if thou serve the gods, I will utterly make it will surely be a snare for thee. But what happens? They start making covenants with these people instead of pushing them off. Go to another land. You've got the rest of the world to live in. This land was given to the Israelites by God. If they're not going to leave and you make covenant with them, their gods, their philosophies, their viewpoints will infect you and become a snare to keep you away from God. So there's a beautiful thing that happens in 24. He's going to affirm this covenant. So he's got this deal on the table. The people have said, we want it. You tell us what the deal is. We'll sign. So he gets a group together to, if you will, sign the covenant. And so he calls up Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 elders. So they're all going to sign. This is almost like a Declaration of Independence, if you will. They don't sign it with a signature, but they sign it by being there. But God sets it up to where he's in the mountain over here, and they're kind of down here, and the only ones who can get closer between them is Moses and Aaron, but still they're in the same general area. It says that they can see God. It's not like they could see him face to face, but they could see him sitting over there. They could see that he was sitting on a throne. It says that they saw God, and under his feet was a paved work of sapphire stone, as it were as a body of heaven. As it were, the body of heaven in its clearness. So they see this throne, they see this outline of a person. So the people, they offer burnt offerings and sacrifice and make peace offerings, as God had commanded, the way he had. And Moses took half the blood and put it in basins, and took half the blood and sprinkled it onto the altar. And he read the book of the covenant. So the book is read after the sprinkling of the blood. We're already establishing this. Now he goes back and reads the words that we've already covered. And this is the book of the covenant so far. We're going to have more explanation, more understanding coming that will not disagree with this covenant, but it's going to expound upon this covenant. So he took half of the blood, and he took the book of the covenant and read it to the audience. And they said, all that the Lord has done, we will do and be obedient. Okay, we're saying, yes, we want to do this. God is saying, Yahweh is saying, yes, this is how I want it done. There's an agreement. And then went up Moses and Aaron, Abihu, and Nadab, N-A-D-A-B, Nadab, and 70 of the children of Israel. And then they saw God. And upon the nobles and the children he laid not his hand, but also these men saw God and did eat and drink. The idea here is they've created koinonia. They've established the covenant. The covenant was established by blood. It was read by the people. The people agreed with it. Then their representatives, the 70, and Moses and Aaron and God, the people ate and drank because of the covenant was set up. We see this idea of koinonia, of acceptance, of a meal, of peace. So there's peace between Yahweh and the people of God here through this establishment of the covenant. And the Lord said to Moses, come up to the mount, and I'll give thee tables of stone and the laws and commandments that I have written, that thou mayest teach them. So he went up, and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up to the mount. So Moses went up with Joshua. Joshua kind of stayed down. Moses went on up. And it says his minister. The idea there is his minister is also the idea who takes care of him and who is his man, his liaison to the people. And the elders stayed back, and Moses went up and into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. So he goes back up to where God is. A cloud covers them. Now they're in this back room, or they're in the boardroom is what I was going to say. And the people are out here. Okay, we've established this covenant. Now they're going to go in and flesh out the details. And he goes up in the covenant, and the glory of the Lord was on Mount Sinai for 6 days. And the seventh day, he called Moses out of the midst of the cloud. So the cloud was there for 6 days, showing that God was there. On the seventh day, he calls him up, and the side of the Lord was like a devouring fire at the top of the mountains. It looked like the mountain was on fire, how bright it was. And the people could see this from miles away. Moses went up into the midst of the cloud and into the mount, and Moses was there 40 days and 40 nights. So the people are down waiting. They've established the covenant. Now he's going to be up there supernaturally for 40 days and 40 nights. God's, of course, taking care of him. This is a time of testing and patience for the people, but it's also a time of establishing. All the people have to do now is just wait patiently for Moses to come back down. Just wait patiently. And we see, after we go through, we're going to go through about 7 chapters where there's an establishment. We've already established the covenant. Now we're going to look at the nuts and bolts of how I want this done, how I want worship to look like, what I want this to look like. This is Yahweh talking. How he wants to. We're going to go into the tabernacle and the table and the different things, the priestly garments and all this stuff. And then he's going to come down in 32, and then we're going to see the golden calf. So, but it's very important that we not just glean over 25 through 31 and just go, well, this technical stuff is boring. This technical stuff is kind of exciting to see that how God is establishing something and his care for it, and how it's important to who he is and how distinct he is. So we're going to see the distinctiveness of God seen in the next 6 to 7 chapters, and then we'll keep moving with the story. On through the Pentateuch, there's going to be places to where it's going good, it's going fine as a narrative, then you're going to get bogged down with some details. The details are there for a reason. The details are important, and we need to see what they are from an evidentiary point of view. Thank you.